Okay, cool. So just so everyone knows, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel and sent out to all registered participants after the event. If you don't want your face on the recording, just feel free to leave your video off. It's not always consistent of like which people's like faces show up on the Zoom recording. So just to let you know. So before we begin tonight's workshop, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and Be More Beautiful. So my name is Morgan. I'm the Community Garden Liaison for Be More Beautiful, which is a city-led peer-to-peer beautification program. Folks who are coming from out of the Maryland area, it's for Baltimore City. And our goal is to not only change behaviors and attitudes towards the beautification of our city, but to also encourage residents, businesses, and organizations to become directly involved in activities and projects that keep their neighborhoods clean. And so to meet this goal, we work closely with neighborhoods on their unique beautification projects and cleanliness challenges, as well as provide educational workshops, literature, outreach materials, grants, volunteer opportunities, and other resources that residents can use to keep Baltimore beautiful. And so I will send out a list after this workshop with different resources and a link to our website where you can read more about our mission and view various grant opportunities we offer to urban green spaces in the city. So tonight we'll be talking about companion planting. I'll offer an overview of companion planting philosophy, offer some ideas for growing plants together in mutually beneficial communities in your garden. And so if you have any questions while I'm presenting, if possible, please save them for the end or put them in the chat. I'll be talking for a little bit under an hour, I think. And then, yeah, we'll have a chance for questions and answers and discussion. So while I'm presenting, please mute your microphones. And I'm covering a lot of terrain in this presentation. So please note that I will, as I said before, be sending resources which kind of cover and add more info and depth into all of the topics that I am presenting today. So I'll be sending that out to everyone tomorrow. Okay, let me see my presentation. Cool, everyone can see the slides, I'm hoping. Cool. All right, so companion planting is defined as the establishment of two or more plant species in close proximity so that some benefit is derived. The concept embraces a number of strategies that increase the biodiversity of agroecosystems. Companion planting is a holistic concept that encompasses the many intricate levels in which plant communities can collaborate in local ecological contexts to support each other. So the main benefits of companion planting are attracting beneficial insects, repelling destructive insects, trapping pests, increasing yields, enhancing flavor, shade regulation, soil improvement, nitrogen fixation, enhancing nutrient uptake, which I think is super cool, water conservation, weed control, pollination, and improved soil fertility. So yeah, one of the basic principles of companion planting is that it can increase biodiversity in your garden, which can in turn create a balanced ecosystem and allow nature to help your plants thrive. Companion planting is considered to be a form of polyculture, defined as agriculture using multiple crops in the same space. These systems mimic the diversity of natural ecosystems and encourage us to avoid large stands of single crops, which is known as monocultures. So polycultures, monocultures. So there is a solid scientific basis for companion planting, contrary to popular belief. The following functions of companion planting are well documented within the agricultural research community. The first function is trap cropping. A trap crop is a plant that is grown to attract pests away from nearby crops, protecting them from damage. An excellent example of this is the use of collards to draw the diamondback moth away from cabbage. Um, Another function is symbiotic nitrogen fixation, um, which involves the formation of nodules on the roots of leguminous plants. Legumes such as peas, beans, and clover have the ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen for their own use and for the benefit of neighboring plants via a symbiotic relationship with rhizobium bacteria. So likewise, beans are sometimes interplanted with corn for the same purpose. So biochemical pest suppression is also known as biocontrol, is another method of pest control that uses natural organisms to reduce pest populations. So it's pretty cool. Some plants exude chemicals from roots or aerial parts that suppress or repel pests and protect neighboring plants. Um, so the African marigold, for example, releases thiopene, a nematode repellent, making it a good companion plant for a ton of crops, as I will be like shoving down y'all's throat the whole presentation, like plant marigolds, they're amazing, plant them with everything, and they're beautiful. Um, so allyl chemicals, such as jugalone, found in black walnut, suppresses the growth of a wide range of other plants, which often create a problem in home horticulture. So if you have a black walnut tree and you're like, oh my gosh, this has so many nuts and it's annoying, it can actually be a positive thing for your garden. Um, and yeah, so a positive use of plant allelopathy is the use of mow-killed grain rye as a mulch. So just another example, the allyl chemicals that leach from the rye residue prevent weed germination, but do not harm transplanted tomatoes, broccoli, or many other vegetables. And so physical spatial interactions, such as tall growing, sun loving plants, may share space with lower growing, shade tolerant species, resulting in higher total yields from the land. A spatial interaction can also yield pest control benefits. The diverse canopy resulting when corn is companion planted with squash or pumpkins is believed to disorient the adult squash vine borer and protect the vining crop from this damaging pest. And in turn, the presence of the prickly vines is said to discourage raccoons from ravaging the sweet corn. So lots of good symbiosis going on there. A few more people are in the waiting room. Just let them in. Okay, and so nurse cropping is also really amazing. Nurse cropping is a plant or tree that helps another plant or tree grow, usually by protecting it during early stages. Um, Taller, dense canopied plants protect more vulnerable species through shading or by providing a windbreak. Nurse crops such as oats have long been used to help establish alfalfa and other forages by supplanting the more competitive weeds that would otherwise grow in their place. In many instances, nurse cropping is simply another form of physical spatial interaction. And then, yeah, beneficial habitats, sometimes called refugia, are created when companion plants provide a desirable environment for beneficial insects and other arthropods, especially those predatory and parasitic species, which help to keep pest populations in check. Predators include ladybird beetles, lacewings, hoverflies, mantids, robber flies, and non-insects such as spiders and predatory mites. Um, Agroecologists believe that by developing systems to include habitats that draw and sustain beneficial insects, the twin objectives of reducing both pest damage and pesticide use can be attained. And the last benefit is security through diversity. which is the idea that the more general mixing of crops and varieties provides a degree of security to the grower. If pests or adverse conditions reduce or simply destroy a single crop or cultivar, others remain to produce some level of yield. So you won't have your entire supply of food wiped out. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, companion planting can increase soil health. So by planting plants with different root structures together, you can aerate the soil and allow plants to pull up nutrients from different parts of the soil profile. Plants with tap roots or tubers like carrots or potatoes can help to break up compaction in the soil. And deep-rooted crops like melons or tomatoes pull water and nutrients from deeper in the soil profile. Utilizing companion planting is not only beneficial for your plants, but also helps maximize your space. Planting early short season crops in the same beds as later maturing crops is a way to conserve space and grow multiple successions of plants in the same garden bed. So examples include planting lettuce, spinach, or basil early in the season and transplanting peppers or tomatoes into the same bed as the early season crops mature. So by the time the early season crop is harvested, the canopy of the later season crop will begin to fill in. And this is not only efficient, but can help with weed management and soil health by keeping living roots in the soil and a plant canopy above the soil surface. Go to our next slide. So throughout history, companion planting has been practiced by indigenous communities around the world. Indigenous relationships and the ways of understanding the world is described by the term traditional ecological knowledge, also known as tech. According to Robin Wall Kimmerer, a professor of environmental and forest biology and an enrolled member of the Potawatomi Nation, she says traditional ecological knowledge is not restricted to the biology of subsistence activities, but includes detailed observations of population ecology and species interactions which arise from long-term association with a particular flora and fauna. So when you get to know the plants around you, you start to create an understanding of the relationships of those creatures, which will in turn inform your interactions with them. And observing, caring for, and knowing your local ecosystem can help you cultivate a loving relationship between you and the world around you. And yeah, many North American Native people historically planted corn, beans, and squash together, calling it the Three Sisters. This is perhaps the most popular companion planting combination even to this day. Leguminous beans fix nitrogen and continually supply this nutrient to the soil. Corn provides stalks for the beans to climb. Squash provides a living mulch with which its broad leaves also shade the soil, reducing evaporation and decreasing weed competition. The Three Sisters model was not just a means for modeling a specific intercropping practice, but was and is a significant cultural and spiritual construct. To the Iroquois people, the Three Sisters are the physical and spiritual sustainers of life. Some versions of their legends involve the crops personified as three women who, separate from each other, only find out that they are stronger together. And the technique for planting the Three Sisters spread from Mesoamerica northward over many generations, eventually becoming widespread throughout North America. Indigenous farmers saved the best seeds of the following season for the following season, resulting in a wide variety of cultivars perfectly suited for the environments in which they were grown. And much of this diversity was sadly lost as indigenous nations were forced out of their ancestral land by early European settlers and mainstream agricultural practices took hold. So yeah, I wanted to include this to give acknowledgement to the founders of this knowledge system. And yeah, intercropping was not only significant to indigenous people in North America, but also shows up in other places such as India. The Griya Khat tribes in the Eastern Ghats in India have agrarian practices where they incorporate over 80 different crops in their interplantings. They do this by sowing seeds in correlation to their climate needs and cultivating varieties that can handle adverse weather such as droughts. Um, and then even kind of further back than the origin, like maybe the original space where the Three Sisters came from, the Central American milpa system is another traditional farming system which is practiced by the indigenous Maya people of Central America and southern Mexico, involving rotating agricultural plots, usually with corn, beans, and squash, and other vegetables alongside various native and cultivated plants to improve soil and grow food in forest gardens within forested areas, which is amazing. And this rotation involves the planting of multiple crops and allows for natural forest regeneration in previously cultivated plots to take place while growing food. And so as a result, these forest gardens maintain high levels of biodiversity and soil fertility by preserving a mosaic of forests and agricultural habitats. Um, and the last one that we'll talk about is the Mediterranean triad, which is another historical method of companion planting, using the three most prominent crops in the classic Mediterranean diet: grapes, grains, and olives. Olive trees are planted in wide rows or on terraces with rows of grapevines and wheat planted between them. The olives and grapes work together to shade the wheat from the hot summer sun, and the olive trees give the grapes a trellis on which to climb. So these are just a few examples from around the world, though I know that there are probably many more. Um, and so, yeah, last thing we'll talk about before we get into some of the specifics. So climate change, as climate change will have a huge impact on agricultural systems in the coming decades, it's important for communities to start adapting and maintaining agricultural practices that are capable of withstanding climate destabilization. Companion planting can help create a sustainable and resilient garden ecosystem that can adapt to climate conditions by reducing overall garden maintenance and input needs, protecting the soil, and promoting biodiversity, which is crucial for building climate resilience. Companion planting reduces our reliance on outside pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, allowing us to work with nature instead of against it to grow productive, life-sustaining gardens. So sorry for this really overwhelming chart. I'll send you a better version of it that you could probably actually read after the presentation. But yeah, so now that we have basic understanding of the history, science, and significance of companion planting, let's talk about how to use some of these techniques in your own garden. So the first step in creating a companion planting design in your garden is to determine what your goals are. So consider, do you want to make the most of your garden space? Do you have issues with water evaporation during the summer? Does your garden have a lot of unwanted pests? If you're a beginner gardener, these might be questions that you kind of answer as you go. Don't feel discouraged. It's so much room for experimentation, just to know what you need to know. And yeah, so the rest of this presentation will go into specific companion planting combinations for 20 of the most popular crops grown in gardens in our bioregion, which I know some of y'all are from other parts of the country. So I'll be talking about things that are popular in Baltimore, but I'm sure some of them are applicable to other parts of the country as well. And the same concepts can be applied. So yeah, these basic combinations of companion plants have been proven to work in many gardens across a variety of ecosystems. But as I was saying, as you begin to experiment, keep in mind that just as every person is different, no two gardens are alike. That is why personal observation is so important in creating successful companion planted gardens. So yeah, kind of new ways of looking at nature and interacting with our local ecosystems is kind of inherent in this work. So we're going to go alphabetically. So asparagus will be our first plant that we talk about. So planting asparagus takes quite a bit of patience, as I'm sure some of you know. A newly planted asparagus bed can take about 3 years to establish its roots and become fully productive. But as a perennial vegetable, once it gets going, an asparagus patch can continue to produce for decades. That also means that events in one year can impact the next year's growth and output, from soil or watering conditions to disease or damage. Um, Companion planting is a great way to manage this long-term investment. Um, so good companions for asparagus include nightshades like tomatoes and eggplants. Tomato plants are rich in solanine, which is known to repel the asparagus beetle that feast on the tender shoots and fronds of asparagus plants. Meanwhile, below ground, asparagus deters root knot nematodes, which attack the root systems of nightshades. So, a little symbiosis happening there. Um, Basil and parsley attract pollinators to all its nearby companion plants and deter asparagus beetles, along with insects that might harm any guardians of asparagus, like tomato hornworms. Um, and coriander, comfrey, and dill are good at repelling spider mites and aphids. Members of the aster family, like marigolds and nasturtiums, are powerful natural pest repellers for asparagus as well. So beans. Beans have many characteristics that make them good partners for other vegetables, as we were talking about before with the three sisters. They're fast to mature and easy to grow, tolerate partial shade, and most beans have tiny hooked hairs on their leaves that entrap aphids and other small insects. Beans can fix nitrogen taken from the air, so they make fewer demands on the soil's nutrient supply compared to other vegetables. Researchers have identified over 112 strains of beneficial bacteria in bean root nodules, which may be one reason why they enjoy the close company of compatible plants. Beans also deter weeds with their dense growth both above and below the ground. How you use beans as companion plants depends on what you hope to accomplish. High-rise walls of pole beans can be used to provide shade for neighbors who suffer in the strong summer sun, while low-growing bush beans can be used as a weed-suppressing ground cover between rows of potatoes, for example. Bush snap beans work well when interplanted with potatoes, which are usually up and growing by the time the soil is warm enough to plant beans. After your potatoes have been weeded and hilled, plant bush beans down the outside of the row. And as the potato dies back, the beans will help keep the soil shaded and cool. And you can also try planting bush beans after spring radishes, cilantro or arugula, with a few of the bolting plants left behind. So radish, cilantro, and arugula flowers attract beneficial insects and can help to confuse pests in search of beans. Um, and you can also interplant bush beans with onions to deter pests from both of the crops as well. Um, and yeah, pole beans, we'll get a little bit more into. Those provide direct benefits to beets, celery, lettuce, broccoli, cabbage, and other cool season crops when situated so that the beans shade the other vegetables from the late afternoon sun. So where space is tight, some gardeners interplant pole beans with cucumbers or tomatoes on a shared trellis. This scheme works best when the tomatoes are well established by the time the beans are planted. And if you grow sweet corn, you already have a ready-made trellis for a late planting of pole beans. After the corn has grown about a foot high, plant pole beans at the ends of the rows and use beans to fill gaps in between your corn rows. So the pole beans will twine about halfway up the corn stalks by the time the sweet corn is ready to pick. And the beans will then yeah, they'll scramble in between the falling corn stalks, creating a hedge of heavy bearing beans. So that's exciting if you love beans, beans for days. So beets. Beets make a great companion plant for your vegetable garden and are one of the easiest crops to grow. You can not do much to them and leave them for even over a year and they'll keep growing, which is pretty cool. They're fast growing, cool season crops that are really simple to harvest. Just dig them out of the ground. And early spring is the best time to plant beets. I don't know if I'm saying beans or beets. Sorry if they sound similar. So beets have many garden friends, but only a few foes. Although susceptible to wireworms, root maggots, and cutworms, beets are generally hardy, able to withstand a cooler climate and partial shade, and can still be harvested in the fall. A few good companions for beets are onions, along with shallots, leeks, and garlic. These can improve the growth and flavor of beets. Onions can also be a natural deterrent for certain garden pests, repelling insect pests like aphids and sugar beet flea beetles, as well as mammal pests like rabbits and deer are always trying to munch. Bush beans, soybeans, and butter beans all flourish best near beets, enriching the soil with nitrogen and nutrients. Lettuce has shorter root growth, making it a great companion for beets. With its more shallow roots, this veggie can fill the open spaces in your garden without competing for resources against your root crops. And some of the best companion plants for beets are members of the cabbage family. So plant beets near cruciferous vegetables like kohlrabi, kale, cauliflower, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts to help enrich the soil and improve the quality and growth of your brassicas. Um, Fast sprouting radishes can be helpful for your beet plants. Radishes can help loosen the soil, which is beneficial for beets, which can toughen up in dense soil. So you could do a planting of radish before you plant your beets to reap those benefits. Um, and catnip is a powerful deterrent against voles and mice who are known to feast on the top of beet greens. Though be sure to plant beets strategically among catnip, as catnip can grow out of control when its seeds are spread. Don't say I didn't tell you so. Um, Broccoli. So broccoli is part of the brassica family and is a prolific vegetable in the garden with side shoots that continue sprouting throughout the season, even after the harvest of the central head or crown has happened. There are a number of companion plants you can grow alongside broccoli, which will help deter pests and help your broccoli flourish. Planting the following companion plants with broccoli will help your plants grow stronger and make your broccoli taste sweeter and more flavorful. So beets are the first one. They're not bothered by broccoli, hogging all the calcium in the soil and add magnesium to the ground and grow well alongside broccolis. Chamomile, which kind of surprising, but it improves broccoli's flavor when planted nearby. Nasturtium and geraniums repel all things that harm brassicas, including cabbage worms and loppers with their peppery astringent scent, specifically referring to the nasturtiums. Geranium's a little more sweet. And yeah, lettuce is a mutually beneficial pairing with broccoli as well. The delicate lettuce fares particularly well in the protective shade of a mid-season broccoli row. And yeah, onions give broccoli a better flavor when they're grown nearby. And interestingly, potatoes, which usually hog a lot of nutrients in the soil, which generally makes them unfriendly to their garden neighbors, are they do pretty well with broccoli actually. That some sources say. We'll leave that up to your experimentation. I've had success with them growing together, so I believe it. Um, And radishes don't need much room to grow, and they enjoy the cool shade that broccoli can provide. So they're a good companion plant. And rosemary and other aromatic herbs like dill, basil, and mint deter cabbage flies from laying their eggs in broccoli crowns. And now we'll get into the cabbage. Speaking of cabbage flies. Um, so cabbage, as probably some of you know, is easy to grow in your home garden. Um, it takes pretty much very little maintenance and can survive even a frost or maybe even two. Growing companion plants alongside your cabbage will help them flourish in many different ways. And yeah, so cabbage and other brassicas love a little shade, especially during the hottest parts of the day. So beans with their big leafy vines can help block the sun if you plant them on the sunny side of your garden. Borage helps attract beneficial insects like bees and other pollinators. Um, so yeah, good for the cabbage. Other brassicas like kale, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, Swiss chard, and other cabbage family members plant well with cabbage because they require the same basic needs. One pest specific to cabbage and other brassicas is the cabbage moth, and the aroma of celery actually deters these insects and prevents them from chewing up your crop. So yeah, celery's good for that. I'm not a huge celery fan, but I would plant it to protect my cabbages. And marigolds, they help get rid of mosquitoes, whiteflies, and nematodes. Um, Aromatic herbs and flowers like
Yeah, I know it. I didn't have it. I had
sorry, I just muted you. I hope that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Where were we? Yeah, so aromatic herbs and flowers like chamomile, wormwood, chive, summer savory, coriander, tansy, yarrow, dill, mint, thyme, hyssop, geranium, rue, sage, and oregano are all very beneficial companion plants to cabbage. Um, these plants repel insects like, as I mentioned, the cabbage moths, also spider mites, and they also attract beneficial insects and pollinators while adding flavor to cabbage with nutrients and vitamins like calcium and sulfur. So good things all around. Okay, next slide. Carrots. So learning how to pair carrots with appropriate companion plants is an important part of growing healthy and flavorful carrot plants. Carrots have many companion plants that can protect them from pests and stimulate their growth. Plants that are particularly good companion plants for carrots include chives. When grown near carrot plants, chives improve the taste and texture of their carrot neighbors. Chives also deter aphids and other pests. Leeks make great companion plants for carrots because they deter carrot flies, and carrots repel leek moths, so more symbiosis. Um, and yeah, planting leeks and carrots together can help both plants grow without being damaged by pests. Legumes can enrich the soil around carrots through their nitrogen fixation process. Planting pole beans or bush beans near your carrot plant will ensure the carrots have rich and healthy soil in which to grow. Onions deter many carrot pests, which most notably are the carrot rust flies. It's wild how there's like an insect that attacks every plant, and they're just like a specific insect that attacks that one plant. Um, and yeah, radishes, as I mentioned before, they're great for loosening up the soil, which makes it easier for carrots to grow if you plant a crop with that before. Um, and yeah, radishes germinate faster than carrots, so you can actually even plant radish seeds around the same time that you plant carrot seeds as well, if you want to go that route. Um, and yeah, rosemary and other herbs like sage can also deter the carrot rust flies. So I know y'all are seeing some common patterns with a lot of these herbs deterring insects, so hope to drive that point home. Um, yeah, okay, and chard is a cool season leafy green vegetable that is part of the beet family. Companion planting with chard in your garden can help your plants grow strong and healthy. Any veggie belonging to the allium family makes a good companion plant for chard. Consider planting shallots, leeks, or chives nearby. Members of the brassica family are some of the best companion plants for chard. These include cabbage, Brussels sprouts, turnips, kohlrabi, and collard greens. Chard is not suitable for your herb garden, but planting peppermint or cilantro nearby can help keep flea beetles away, lessening the need for pesticides. Legumes, especially as I keep repping the bush beans, and peas are mutually beneficial to chard plants because of their nitrogen fixation, and also the high magnesium content of chard can help increase the chlorophyll production of legumes. So more mutuality. And yeah, you can also plant annuals to help attract pollinators to your chard or native plants that are pollinator friendly. And yeah, you just kind of try to grow flowers if you do that for the pollinator attracting that have a strong fragrance, such as sweet alyssum to keep aphids out of your garden beds because I guess um so collards are known to grow well with beets, bush beans, cucumbers, and celery. Collard greens can be targets for pests like aphids, cabbage worms, and cabbage loppers, which are detracted by chamomile, dill, garlic, marigolds, mint, nasturtiums, rosemary, sage, and thyme. Collard greens grow well besides potatoes and onions since they won't compete against each other for the same nutrients. So a lot of the principles that I talked about with like cabbage and broccoli can be applied to collards as well. Um, corn. Corn benefits from a number of companion plants, which include a variety of fruits, vegetables, herbs, and flowers. Borage attracts beneficial insects, but can deter pest worms from your corn. Um, and it's really beautiful. I love borage. And as a vine plant, cucumbers spread out along the ground to provide some ground cover for corn, preventing weeds and keeping the soil moist. Um, Melons are also beneficial to corn in the same way. Dill is an aromatic herb that attracts beneficial insects like pollinators and parasitic wasps, which will help pollinate corn and keep other pest levels down. Marigolds are one of the most popular companion plants because they repel a wide variety of pests, including aphids, which is a super common pest on crops. Um, the aroma of different mint plants, such as hyssop and sage, will repel grazing animals like deers, which huge problem in Maryland, um, which are of course dangerous pests to growing corn. They love corn. Um, and yeah, nasturtiums, as I mentioned before, they're beautiful. And so they actually can attract aphids. Well, this may seem counterintuitive. Many gardeners will actually plant nasturtiums a short distance away from their garden to attract aphids away from their crops. Um, Thyme is an aromatic herb that can repel corn earworms, which is a common pest in cornfields. So yeah, lots of good herbs. Um, so cucumbers. So companion planting with cucumbers will help maximize the efficiency and health of your crop. Um, just talked about corn, but you can use corn stalks as natural trellises for vining cucumbers, which is a great way to save space and maximize garden efficiency. Just make sure you're using a cucumber variety that stays kind of small, like pickling cucumbers. Otherwise, your corn stalks won't be able to support them. Um, And in return for the support, cucumber vines will serve as a natural mulch beneath your corn stalks, and that will retain moisture and keep weeds out of the ground around there. Um, and yeah, similar to corn stalks, you can use sunflower stalks as natural trellising for your vining cucumbers. Um, Dill is great. It attracts beneficial insects, like parasitic wasps, which will help pollinate your cucumbers and keep other garden pest levels down. Many gardeners believe that dill improves the flavor of mature cucumbers as well. Um, Pickles also are great with dill. Um, but be careful of other aromatic herbs. However, some people say that herbs like sage and mint have a very strong scent and flavor and may negatively impact the taste of your cucumbers. Um, and yeah, legumes are another great choice to grow with cucumbers because they provide much needed nitrogen in the soil. Many root vegetables also pair well with cucumber plants. Since cucumbers send down one big taproot while the rest of their roots remain thin and shallow, only extending 6 to 12 inches in any direction. This means that cucumbers won't interfere with the growing of root vegetables like carrots, parsnips, radishes, and turnips, if you plant them nearby, since root vegetables grow primarily beneath the soil and will make use of space that the cucumbers don't need. Um, and radishes also deter cucumber beetles, which is the worst enemy of a cucumber patch. Okay, eggplants. Um, So eggplant is can be a perennial warm season vegetable from the nightshade family, depending on where you live. One of its companion plants is spinach. Eggplants can provide spinach with shade in the summer, while the green superfood helps retain soil moisture for the eggplants. Oregano repels aphids, cabbage moths, and spider mites with its powerful aroma and attracts beneficial insects and pollinators like honeybees and ladybugs. Other members of the nightshade family, like tomatoes, peppers, and potatoes, make good companion plants for eggplants because they share similar growing requirements. Eggplants are heavy feeders that require proper nutrients to set and produce fruit. Broccoli imparts nutrients into the soil, which help eggplants thrive. Kohlrabi deters insects like aphids, flea beetles, and cabbage worms. Borage attracts beneficial insects and can deter pest worms from invading your eggplants. And pole beans are a great plant to grow with eggplants because they provide that nitrogen to the soil. Feed the heavy feeders. Kale, which is, as many of you probably know, a leafy green vegetable in the brassica family. You should probably avoid planting kale with other brassicas, as they can fall prey to the same pests and diseases, or just, spread them out a little bit with these other companion plants in between them. Beneficial companion plants to grow alongside kale include cilantro, which is one of the best companion plants for kale because it attracts beneficial insects like hoverflies that prey on common kale pests like aphids. Alliums like chives, shallots, and leeks deter pests like flea beetles, cabbage loppers, aphids that are common prey for kale leaves. Legumes of all varieties enrich the soil around your kale. And yeah, catnip, again, repels pests and attracts beneficial insects. Buckwheat serves as a ground cover, sealing moisture in the soil and smothering weeds so your kale can grow in ideal conditions. Buckwheat also attracts beneficial insects and increases the nitrogen content of your soil. So we're always trying to increase that nitrogen. Um, and lettuce. So lettuce is great. It's quick to plant, simple to harvest. Calendula is a companion plant for lettuce in a peculiar way. It attracts slugs, which are one of the biggest dangers to a lettuce crop. So you can plant calendula a short distance away from your lettuce rows to deter slugs from your lettuce. Parsley is also a great slug repellent that attracts slugs in the same way, can be used in the same way, plant them away from your lettuce. And beets, carrots, parsnips, onions, and shallots utilize underground space to grow, while lettuce plants have their shallow roots and can grow their crop above the soil around these root vegetables. Chives and garlic can act as a barrier plant against aphids. You can plant chives or garlic if you plant in rows, the rows of your lettuce crop to deter aphids from getting to your lettuce leaves. Turnips also naturally repel aphids. Aromatic herbs such as cilantro do a great job of warding off pesky insects and attracting beneficial ones. Eggplants thrive in weather conditions that would be too hot for healthy lettuce. So consider planting eggplants near your lettuce so that it can take over the space after your lettuce is harvested. If you're growing baby lettuce, it's a very fast grower, while plants like melons and squash take much longer to spread out. So if you plant melons or squash alongside your baby lettuce plants, you'll be able to harvest them just as the slower plants are ready to take over that space. So just maximizing space and efficiency. Um, yeah, and so fast growers like radishes can help you mark rows of slower growing lettuce. You can just plant a few radish seeds along the lettuce row, and the radishes will germinate quickly, showing where the row of lettuce will eventually grow. So that's if you're growing, yeah, a slower growing variety of lettuce. And at the same time, lettuce can improve a radish crop, keeping them softer and more delicious longer into the summer. Okay, watermelon. So watermelon grows on long, low vines, which can make the growing process difficult as the watermelon vines compete for space, sunlight, and nutrients. Companion planting can be beneficial to watermelons, but overcrowding its watermelon's growing space with too many plants can put the plant at risk for cross-pollination or even stall the growing process. Um, and yeah, so watermelons rely on insects like bees to help them produce fruit, which is why flowering plants with appealing scents like marigolds, lavenders, borage make good companions for watermelon plants. These flowers also repel aphids, which can be particularly destructive to watermelon leaves and tendrils. Pungent aromatic herbs like mint, tansy, catnip, basil are also excellent insect repellents. You can plant them in pots or beds surrounding your melon patch, kind of keep them under control, especially for mint and catnip. And fast growing crops like radishes, always the radishes, are a good way to take advantage of the garden space before the watermelons are ready to spread out. Um, yeah, and so, radishes have shallow roots, they're easily harvested, and will keep the area clear of weeds while the melons establish themselves, which is always my biggest problem with growing watermelons, is just weeding them is so difficult. Um, and yeah, crops that serve as antifungal pest protection, like alliums, are also useful to watermelons. Um, okay. Okra. So okra grows well with many different vegetables, herbs, and flowers. Okra needs a lot of water, so you can plant okra alongside thirsty crops like eggplants or cucumbers. Examples of other good companion plants to grow and harvest with okra include aromatic herbs and flowers such as chamomile, wormwood, chives, summer savory, coriander, tansy, yarrow, dill, mint, thyme, hyssop, geranium, rue, sage, and oregano. These plants repel insects, um, like cabbage moth and spider mites, so pests, while attracting beneficial insects like pollinators. Um, Plants like kale, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, chard, and other brassica family members do really well with okra as well. They add nutrients to the soil, which helps improve the health of your okra plants. And sunflowers, I see this a lot in Baltimore, act as a great companion plant for okra to attract pollinators, allow okra pods to bloom. So just have a few more of these. I know we're getting close to seven. So planting your peppers alongside friendly neighbors will help with pests and improve growing conditions. Planting easy to grow basil alongside your peppers can improve your pepper's flavor and may help deter pests like ripes, aphids, spider mites, and flies. Carrots won't compete with peppers for garden space or sun, and they can also create a living mulch that reduces weeds, which can help your pepper crop thrive. Peppers return the favor, providing carrots with much needed shade. Um, and yeah, many flowers make excellent pepper companions, including geraniums, alliums, nasturtiums, petunias, and marigolds. These flowers add bursts of vibrant color, attract pollinators, and deter many of the common pepper crop pests. Geraniums, for instance, are a known repeller of Japanese beetles, while marigolds rebuff squash bugs and soil nematodes. Onions partner well with peppers because they don't take up much space and protect against slugs and cabbage worms. Um, in the kitchen, they can also improve the flavor of your peppers. From salsa to chili, peppers and onions pair well together in the kitchen and the garden. It seems to be a common theme. Um, and herbs, especially oregano, dill, cilantro, chives, marjoram, are also good companion plants because they grow close to the ground, so they won't compete with peppers for space. Their aromatic ground covers can protect against garden pests that damage your pepper yield. Dill, for instance, protects against the ruinous hornworm. And low-growing spinach is another good companion for peppers because it crowds out weeds without competing for sunlight or water. Um, and yeah, the ground coverage spinach provides also creates cool and moist soil, which peppers are peppers' favorite growing conditions. Um, and then yeah, also tomatoes and peppers grow in similar conditions, making them compatible neighbors. However, planting these two nightshades together requires special attention to spacing, as tomato plants require more space than peppers do. Um, Otherwise, they may become vulnerable to disease and pests while shading out pepper plants. So just be careful. Um, okay, so potatoes. Um, so alyssum flowers attract beneficial insects and serve as a natural mulch to retain soil moisture and deter weeds for potatoes. Um, Potatoes are a great choice for planting near brassicas. Because they have shallow root systems that won't compete for the space or nutrients that potatoes need. While potatoes grow mostly underground, they require very little above ground surface area. Corn is the opposite. You know, it grows tall and has shallow roots. So planting potatoes along your corn stalks will take advantage of their different needs and maximize space in your garden. Um, Chives attract beneficial insects and don't use the same space that potatoes do in the garden. Um, as a bonus, chives are a popular herb to top potato dishes, so farm to table there. Um, and yeah, cilantro is actually considered one of the best plants to grow with potatoes as it's excellent at attracting beneficial insects like ladybugs, hoover flies, paras I'm going to say this wrong, parasitoid wasps, and lacewings that will prey on harmful pests, including Colorado potato beetles. Um, that plant we haven't mentioned before, but is awesome, is flax, is a great companion plant for potatoes if you're growing in a bioregion that those work in. The tannins and linseed oils in the flax plant help deter Colorado potato beetles. Horseradish improves potato plant disease resistance. Um, Legumes are great, giving more nitrogen to the potatoes. Yeah, they grow really well together. And in addition, potato plants uh, deter the Mexican bean beetle, which is a pest of many legumes. So more symbiosis. And petunias and pansies are flowers that attract beneficial insects to help with natural pest control for potatoes. So you can have a pretty potato patch with flowers. Beautiful. Um, okay, so growing healthy pumpkins means being prepared for any number of pests. There's a lot of them. Insects such as squash bugs, cucumber beetles, squash vine borers, and aphids can all be a problem for developing fruit. Companion planting pumpkins with heat-tolerant pollinator attracting neighbors can help to manage them. Aromatic herbs like oregano, chive, chamomile, marjoram, tansy, and hyssop can assist in pest control efforts. Oregano makes a good ground cover and attracts hooverflies, which feed on aphids, while the presence of marjoram is said to enhance pumpkin's flavor. I can just imagine that being delicious. Tansy boosts potassium in soil and repels Japanese beetles. Flea beetles are more likely to go for radishes when given the choice, so radish can be used as a sacrificial trap crop if needed. Basil and catnip are also effective repellents of flea beetles, along with many other pests. Peppery orange flowered nasturtium vines are considered one of, as I said, the top attractors of natural predators to not so beneficial pumpkin pests, including squash bugs, aphids, and pumpkin beetles. Um, yeah, so those sacrificial nasturtium patches are cool. Um, okay, so just how many more are there? I think there are two more. Cool. So we'll talk about squash. So squash companion plants are flowers, herbs, and other vegetables that repel pests, improve soil conditions, and encourage a faster growth rate for your squash plants. Radishes, as I mentioned a lot, are a good companion plant for squash varieties like zucchini, as they deter squash vine borers. Sunflowers grow tall and provide helpful shade for squash plants in hot climates. Corn will also provide shade and offer sturdy stalks for lighter varieties of squash to climb. Legumes fix that nitrogen for the squash. The squash love that. And over time, marigolds can reduce the number of nematodes that are likely to affect your squashes. And they'll also attract helpful bugs like parasitic wasps. They'll eat harmful pests. And borage repels pests while eventually becoming a natural mulch that transfers calcium back into the soil to feed your squash plants. Peppermint, lemon balm, and parsley can repel damaging insects for squash vines as well. And our final plant, much anticipated tomato. So planting tomatoes come with a host of possible setbacks, from blossom end rot to fungal diseases, insect pests like tomato hornworms, aphids, and whiteflies, as well as early and late blight. Yeah, exciting. So pruning, vigilant weeding, and mulching can help protect and manage tomato plants until it's time to harvest. But choosing the best tomato companion plants can do a lot of this work naturally. So maybe, as some of y'all have heard before, I think maybe someone said it in the chat, basil and tomatoes are soulmates on and off the plate. This vibrant aromatic herb repels insects, specifically flies and hornworms, and is believed to improve yields. Um, Parsley is another classic pairing. It boosts growth and attracts predators of the tomato hornworm like ladybugs. Garlic is said to repel spider mites. Tomatoes, borage, and squash are a common trio in companion planting, and that's mostly due to timing. Borage is a big favorite of pollinators in general, and it also repels tomato hornworms. Not only does it improve the growth and flavor of tomatoes as it protects them, it also makes an attractive, striking garnish for tomato dishes as well. And then by the time late summer squash is ready to blossom, the foundation's already been laid. Um, and yeah, marigolds and nasturtiums are particularly excellent companion plants for tomatoes. Just yeah, plant those nasturtiums a little bit away. Asparagus illustrates the give and take of good companion planting. Tomatoes repel asparagus beetles with a chemical called solanine, and asparagus helps to clear the soil of root knot nematodes attracted to tomatoes. And chives repel aphids, nematodes, and mites from tomatoes. Okay, wow, the sun is hitting my face hardcore right now. Okay, so as you heard during this overview of these 20 popular companion plant guilds, there are a number of flowers that are useful to grow in your garden that can serve to detract pests from your vegetables and fruits. Another notable flower to mention is, oh wait, I think I skipped one. Sorry, I think, yeah, okay, this is the flower side. Sorry. Um, yeah, another notable flower to mention is bee balm, also known as monarda, which is great for attracting beneficial insects and pollinators. Um, uh, Dahlias repel nematodes, geraniums repel cabbage worms and Japanese beetles. They also distract beet leaf hoppers, which carry the curly top virus. Hyssop is a wonderful pollinator attracting plant. It is not as invasive as other members of the mint family, which makes it more safe for inner planting. Lavender repels fleas and moths while nourishing many nectar-feeding and beneficial insects. Lavender can protect nearby plants from insects such as whiteflies. And lavender planted under and near fruit trees can deter coddling moths. Sunflowers and zinnias attract hummingbirds, which eat whiteflies. And the pastel varieties of zinnias can be used as a trap crop for Japanese beetles. And all zinnias attract bees and other insect pollinators. Um, so a plant that can be considered a universal companion plant as well is comfrey. So comfrey is a perennial herbaceous shrub that is native to Europe and some parts of Asia. It has a thick stem, oblong leaves, and its flowers are purplish blue in densely arranged clusters. Comfrey is valued as a companion plant in the garden or orchard because of its large, deep root system. It works as a bioaccumulator, drawing nutrients up from the soil. And mowing this luscious plant down a few times a season allows the large leaves and stems to compost in place, which adds valuable organic matter to the topsoil. And comfrey flowers are also a favorite food source for bumblebees and insects. Um, Okie dokie. So, in conclusion, companion planting is a great way to work with nature to create an ideal habitat in your garden for your crops to thrive. Symbiotic plant relationships are complex and may take some experimentation to get the right combination of species to benefit each other in the microclimate and soil type within your garden. And so I will just leave you with this quote by the Japanese visionary natural farmer Masanobu Fukuoka, who wrote, "People interfere with nature, and try as they may, they cannot heal the resulting wounds. Their careless farming practices drain the soil of essential nutrients, and the result is yearly depletion of the land. If left to itself, the soil maintains its fertility naturally, in accordance with the orderly cycles of plant and animal life. Organic remains of plants and animals accumulate and are decomposed on the surface by bacteria and fungi. With the movement of rainwater, the nutrients are taken deep into the soil to become food for microorganisms, earthworms, and other small animals. Plant roots reach to the lower soil strata and draw the nutrients back to the surface." So if you know Masanobu Fukuoka, you already know that he's amazing. One Straw Revolution, I really recommend it as like a follow-up reading. Lots of amazing information in there about how to farm and garden with nature. It's called the lazy farmer technique. Although it does take a lot of work, it is in the long term a lot easier than conventional agricultural practices. So yeah, we should aim to farm and garden in a way nature grows her plants in mutually beneficial communities that help local ecologies to thrive. Companion planting is one way we can be regenerative stewards of the land, lowering our need for external inputs of fertilizers and pesticides that harm the soil. Um, yeah, thank you all for listening. And yeah, we'll move into our question and answer session. Feel free to take yourself off mute, put questions in the chat. I'll go through the chat now and see if there are questions. And if I don't know the answers to your questions, I will write them down and I will answer them in a follow-up email because I'm sure you all have great questions that I don't know. Okay, so let me see. Okay, is purslane helpful? Yes, I don't know exactly what the benefits of purslane are in the soil, but I have purslane growing in pretty much all of my like container gardens. I just have like a bunch of like buckets basically on my porch because I don't have like a yard in the city, but um, I grew purslane one year and it just seeded prolifically and just got into all of my soils and is just growing alongside like every single herb and plant that I have in every pot. And it does really well. Its roots are very shallow. So I don't think it competes for space. I don't think it also competes for water very much because it's very drought tolerant. So like sometimes when I forget to water my buckets, or it's just crazy hot like it was in Baltimore today, like everything will be wilting, but the purslane will be like thriving and living its best life. So yeah, I don't know exactly how it affects the soil, but I think that it is beneficial and it's definitely not detrimental in my experience to any of the plants that I've grown, even in like a very small space. Um,
I know it's edible.
and it's delicious. Oh my gosh, and it has so many omegas. It's like better than fish oil for like the amounts of omegas. And I mean, it's filling too. It's like, I mean, maybe, yeah, you probably already know this, so preach it to the choir. But
I've only heard, I have not eaten any purslane yet, but a friend said she used it in some recipe and she said it takes a bit of work, but it's amazing taste. You don't need much of it.
it's so nutrient dense. Like
Oh,
I
yeah,
couldn't eat like a whole bowl of it. Like I tried to make like a salad. I
that's
was
what,
full by like half.
and it's an edible weed of all things. So
Yeah.
you can deliberately plant it. It's very easy to pull if you really want to get rid of it. But I see a couple of different ones and I'm not sure which one is the edible one. So I have to study it a little more.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and yeah, I've actually personally, it's like one of those plants where I've seen it like all over the world. Like, I'll go to like some different country and I'll be like, "Whoa, purslane's here!" Like, hello, familiar friend. Like, I mean, it does great in urban environments. I'll see it all the time, like in between like sidewalk cracks. But yeah, I know the ones that are edible are at least like choice edible are like a bit more like succulent. Like there's some purslanes that I'll see that their leaves are very like thin kind of and dry-ish, but like I think the ones that have like the thicker, more like squishy leaves in my experience have been like tasty and not as like gamey. I don't know if there's any like non-edible purslane varieties. I think it's just like some of them are just kind of a little nasty. Don't quote me on that though. Google, don't die eating weeds. But there are purslanes that you can actually get seeds of. I think Southern Exposure Seed Exchange sells them, and yeah, there's a few other places that you can get yeah, like the cultivated like thicker stemmed purslanes, which are what I have in my containers, but those are really delicious and
Mm.
just do so well. Yeah, thank you for that.
Mm.
Um, okay, let me see. Okay, I read that planting walnut trees near your garden can have a negative effect on some plants. Apparently, they release a toxic compound called jugalon, which can adversely affect many kinds of plants. Yeah, that is definitely a thing for, I think it depends on the plants, for sure. I would definitely, that's something I'll have to follow up on and do a bit more research because I have heard that, and I have heard also that it can be like some plants like can benefit from some of those compounds, but yeah, I will do a bit more research and follow up about that. Thank you so much.
if I can say, I saw a video just the other day that some tree company was talking about taking out a black walnut tree because it was killing the property's other big trees. They couldn't figure out why the other trees were suffering, and he discovered they had a black walnut near them, and they took out the black walnut. He said it can
Wow.
really hurt the other trees.
Oh my God.
I
That's
don't, that's the first I heard about it, but you look around at the black walnuts, how many other trees are grown around it? I'm starting to notice.
yeah, that's like, yeah, that is really interesting. Yeah, I haven't worked so much with black walnut in the past. I just started like learning how to harvest them and it's extremely challenging. But yeah, that does make sense because you don't see a lot of trees growing around them and they're just like prolifically dropping their nuts like all over. So like thank you for adding that in the chat. That is definitely important. And yes, I will do some more research about that. Um, okay, is bee balm and onions a good idea to plant near pepper plants? Um, so I think yeah, bee balm for sure. I think in my experience, bee balm has done just wonderful things for like any plant that I've planted them near. I think peppers would really benefit from them with like their pollinator um specificities. Onions, I think I don't know. I don't yeah, I'll follow up about that because I mean I don't see why not. But I just don't know specifically if they would benefit them. So I'm gonna write that down and I'm gonna follow up about that. Um, okay, I see another question. I mostly use containers. Is it okay to have companions in the same container or should they be separate? Maybe it depends on soil companions. Yeah, okay, so I think they're fine to have in the same container as long as you have enough space for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I have like these like kind of like longer like troughs that I grow plants in on my porch and yeah, I've companion planted like nasturtiums and marigolds and other things. I you could also like if you're growing things that aren't, like affecting the soil, like, like beans where you're trying to reap the, nitrogen fixation like in the soil, like if you're growing something like like tomatoes and you want marigolds to help with like nematodes, like they would need to be in the same container because they're like the roots help to repel nematodes. But if you're doing something like nasturtiums where you're trying to like detract aphids, like those could be in another container away from the tomatoes. And yeah, I guess it kind of just depending on like those relationships and like what benefits they're like creating. I think yeah, just as long as you keep like good spacing, you could definitely grow them in containers for sure. Um, oh, smart pots. That's cool. I haven't heard of smart pots. That's also, are they like cloth pots or I don't know. That's cool. I'll have to learn about that a bit more. Oh, nice. Yeah, cloth pots are great. Oh, I love them. They're so nice. And they're so nice to like move around too. They're so easy to like just pick up and move, which I really like. It's nice when you have to move around a lot or just want to like move your plants to different areas. Okay, I see a hand up. Yeah, Jan, feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Rats, I just lost my thought. Anybody else, go ahead.
No worries. And if you think of questions after, I'll send like my email and stuff that I'm happy to answer questions later. Um, okay, let me see. Did I miss anything else in the chat? Oh, Center for a Livable Future. Yes. Yes. They're amazing. Yeah, we've done
That's
some work.
that's kind of more for get away from conventional farming and agriculture and stuff like that, I think.
They're so cool. Oh my gosh, thank you for adding that in there. Yeah, everybody check them out. Also make a note to um yeah, put this link in my follow-up because yeah, they're incredible. They're doing great work. Yeah, we worked with them a few years ago doing like they were doing a research or one of their like PhD candidates were doing research about like the benefits of like green space on like mental health and urban environments. And yeah, they're just doing really cool stuff. Yeah, along with the Safe Urban Harvest study, which is really interesting. If anyone is an urban grower and is interested in preventing, heavy metal contamination in your crops, that's a great research article to read, very accessible.
I just
Um,
remembered, can I tell you what I heard last night?
oh yeah, absolutely.
I was in a meeting, another Zoom meeting with one of the big groups. Oh, Baltimore Green Space. And there were master gardeners in the group. And couple of them mentioned that, and this has happened at a garden in East Baltimore that I volunteer at. And I thought, wow, we must have rotten soil, or what did we do wrong? Or this is, the heat was been awful, blah, blah. I couldn't figure it out. Tomatoes are awful. The cucumbers are awful. The master gardeners, cucumbers and tomatoes, everything's failing and they don't know why. So I thought it was just we were neglectful or something, but if master gardeners are having problems, it must be something going on. Is anybody else experiencing this in this group?
Yeah, and so I definitely want to give other people a chance to talk. Yeah, like I've definitely experienced that this year with a lot of the green spaces that I've worked with. I wonder if it's the temperature fluctuations and the lack of rain, like classic climate change um situation. And sorry, I saw someone with their hand up, so please feel free to jump in. Anyone else?
They have to unmute themselves.
Someone in the chat said the heat and drought is hurting everything here in Arlington, Virginia. Yep. Yeah, yeah, it's really hard. And I mean, I do see that like a lot of plants don't do as well when they're just being like
Overheated.
irrigated with like municipal water. Like I think they do better with rainwater. So when we don't have that rain, they don't do as well. Sorry, did you say something, Christopher? Sorry.
I think he said overheated.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and DJ, I see. Yeah, don't blame yourself. I think it's definitely a thing. And I mean, even like wild plants too. Like I do a lot of like foraging and like it was a horrible year for service berries, a lot of mushrooms, like a lot of native edibles are also like yeah, suffering right now, which is scary. Um oh yeah, I see, Michael, you said even with watering daily from the rain barrels even. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just like that lack of like a good soaking maybe or just like a sustained consistent rain could definitely be like the issue. Um Mary says in Springfield, Virginia, we've had a better tomato harvest than in previous years, so not good for cucumbers. Not so good for cucumbers. That's interesting. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I'm glad those tomatoes have been doing good though too. That's nice. It always seems like it's one or the other or something. They'll be like one crop does really well and the other suffers, but yeah, cucumbers they take a lot of water. Oh, sorry, Jan, did you raise your hand again?
Yeah, I don't want to hog the mic, but another thought, somebody, and I don't know, just looking for confirmation. I was told a long time ago, and I repeat this, and I hope it's true. If there's lightning, if there's lightning, thunder, and all that in a storm, it helps fix the nitrogen into the rain, which helps. So therefore, a lightning storm is helping with the crops.
Wow.
This
I
is
have
what I've
never
I've
heard.
understood because the heat from the lightning, nitrogen's in the air, um, and it doesn't bond with the rain coming down unless there's lightning. This
That's
is what anybody can confirm that. So I'll keep repeating it until somebody says you're wrong.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh, I just wrote that down. That's so interesting. I thank you for sharing that. That's really, really cool. Wow. Yeah, actually I had no idea. No one's ever told me that. So I believe you. It seems logical to me. I want to believe that.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, oh, I like that. Mary, that's funny. A longtime gardener from Wisconsin told me that tomatoes have to suffer to produce. That makes sense. Yeah, tomatoes have been doing well this year. I think even like, yeah, my partner lives in DC and like their tomatoes have been like doing really good somehow. And I'm like, you haven't been home to water them and they've been drying out, but I don't know. They're like succulents, maybe sometimes. Like they like to be ignored a little bit. I don't know. I'd struggle with tomatoes. They're fickle for me.
Some other urban gardener recommended, he said, just let them wilt. Don't water them until they look wilty because he said you'll overwater them. And
Oh,
I thought that was weird advice, but has anybody got experience with that?
that's really
Well,
interesting.
yeah, I'm curious if that's from their experience, but I don't know.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, because they are so sensitive. Like I try and grow them in like buckets on my porch and yeah, they're very sensitive to that. They do a bit well because it dries out so quickly. But yeah, it is always like a battle of like how much do I water them and like just getting that perfect amount. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. Oh yeah, any other questions, comments,
Do
concerns?
do you have anything on cover crops over winter?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, buckwheat was one I mentioned. Yeah, I can follow up with some more info on that because yeah, I don't know about so you're talking about like companion planting cover crops or just like cover crops in general or
I, my understanding of cover crops is that you plant them and then when they're done for the winter or whatever, you till them back into the soil. You turn them into the soil so that it builds the nutrients. Is that the concept?
yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I know so yeah, like clover is one that does really well around here, like red clover.
I've heard fava beans
Oh my gosh, yeah, beans. Yes, those are great.
or
Those are
oats, maybe oats.
yes, oats too. Oats are they're great. I love them. Personal favorite. Um, yeah. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot. And those are, I mean, really wonderful. They're like conserving the soil, like helping like the water get into the soil deeper and like, adding all of that nutrition. You don't need to buy tons of compost or like add tons of compost. Yeah, so definitely cover crops are amazing. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Oh yeah, rye, Anthony. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, rye is great. I mean, it's great when you can also like you can harvest these cover crops too. It's like compost and food and it's just they're beautiful too. Like nature abhors a vacuum, It's great to have something covering your fields. Otherwise, it'll be weeds and erosion. So plant the rye and the fabas. Very cool. Okay, well, I will send out my contact info in the follow-up email. Thank you all for all of your food for thought. Yeah, I appreciate all y'all's knowledge and engagement and um yeah, for coming out tonight. Maybe I don't know if anyone's in Baltimore. It looks like maybe there'll be some rain. I don't know. Hopefully, maybe that'll help some of the plants out. Um but yeah, okay, well, everybody have a good night. Thank you so much for coming. It was great meeting you, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.